must be brought to the notice of the people. You can't keep it secret, but it is kept secret. Who reads the economic survey? It's the most dull, depressing document you can ever come across unless you are an economist. It makes no sense. You will be fed up reading 3 lines of it. So people don't read it, and therefore people do not know what advice the government of India has received. It has received this warning that there is a serious risk of inflation, but it has chosen to ignore the warning. So much about the inflation part. Let me come to the next point regarding the question of growth. After all, what are our perennial problems? Poverty and unemployment. Give the Indian people some minimum standard of living and give them a job so that they don't waste their lives. That's all that the Indian people want. Their needs are very few. I've seen the people of other countries and I'm amazed at the contentment of the Indian people. Unless they are misled by bogus trade unionists who understand nothing of economics, unless they are misled, they will not follow the wrong practice. They will try to be reasonable. That is our Indian first-rate human stuff. Now, poverty, as I've already told you, the level is really disastrous, and about 50%, according to most economists, live below the poverty line. If you use the word poverty line in any meaningful sense, not in the artificial government sense, which tries to show every year that less and less people are below the poverty line and more cross the line. These things don't happen in practice. In fact, if you read the economic treatises, you would know what the truth is. But for lack of time, I won't deal with that. I'm just now on this point, that the budget will not result in increase in the economic activity of the country. It will not increase in better working for the existing companies. And it will certainly not be conducive to the starting of new companies. How else do you create jobs except by starting new companies? Let me give you the example of USA. If you look at the 500 top corporations in the magazine called Fortune, comes from USA, you find a large number are the US corporations. Well, in all the US corporations figuring in the top 500, the number of jobs has been reduced. In other words, the jobs have been lost in the big corporations. But small new enterprises have sprung up. And the statistics show that between 1972 and 1987, 15 years, 27 million new net jobs have been created in the United States. 27 million. Mind you, the actual number of new jobs is greater. But from that number you deduct the losses lost, the jobs lost in the big corporations, and you come to the net number of 27 million. They are all created by new enterprises, small men. The spirit of enterprise has been kindled in them. And they start enterprises engaging 10 men, 20 men. That's how the jobs are created. Take the UK. The United Kingdom, Britain, today enjoys a boom it has never known before since the last war. What is that? Today they will have, their budget will be on the 15th March. They will have $5 billion available as surplus with the Chancellor of the Exchequer, and he would have to decide how to deal with it. Reduce the taxes, or pay off the national debt, or spend it in some other way beneficial to the nation. $5 billion, pounds, I'm sorry, not dollars, pounds, which means more than $5 billion. Now, how do they manage? Only by creating more enterprises. I would like to give you this example. On the 12th of January this year, Lord Young, who is the minister in charge of the Department of Trade and Industry, had a new logo for his own Department of Trade and Industry. He called it Department for Enterprise. And the Department of Enterprise, as he explained to the people, was, here is my government, my ministry, which wants to help you in starting new enterprises. If in India you had to give a name, you would have to say Department for Stifling Enterprises. But here is the Department for Enterprises. And on the letterhead of the Department of Trade and Industry, you would find these words, and see us. Find out how we can help you. Our door is open. This is the gesture of the government to the people. Have you heard of such a gesture by the Indian government to the people? And what enterprise in this country? I tell myself this, and I have no doubt that one day the words will come true. If you ever have in charge of this country some man of vision, some man of understanding, some man who knows how the wealth of a nation is created, in other words, some man who knows the basic practical economics of creation of wealth, you will find this country as one of the most prosperous on earth. There is enough talent, enough enterprise. All that we need is the right policy. Do you think this budget will give it to you? None at all. We had an allowance for capital expenditure on scientific research. The income tax, the Direct Taxes Amendment Act, which was passed last January, has taken it away. Of course, people even don't know it. Members of Parliament didn't know it, because the bogus, the dishonest note on clauses was put in the bill. That this deletion is because under Section 37 of the Income Tax Act, scientific research expenditure would be allowed. I call it dishonest because the man who drafted it must have known full well that capital expenditure is never allowed under 37. But it was allowed under 35, and they have deleted that provision. By contrast, look at what Australia is doing. Australia found itself in economic difficulty, same as India's. We abolished this deduction for capital expenditure on scientific research. They went the other way. They allow 150% deduction for both capital and revenue expenditure on scientific research. In other words, not only is capital expenditure allowed, but 50% extra is allowed. Why? In order to enthuse people to have scientific research. To operate in this country with our mentality, I'm afraid the country is far too big for the minds and the hearts of some individuals. They just don't have the comprehension of what this country stands for and what this country is capable of. Let me give you the unemployment figures. I give it every year because I think the matter is worth noting. We have 747 employment exchanges in India today. The number of registered unemployed is 31 million. Now, if you take the public sector, private sector together, the government, the public sector companies, the private sector companies, the municipalities, state governments, everybody together, you come to 25 million people employed. And the number of unemployed is 31 million on the register. There are at least another 10, 20 million who never get themselves registered. That means if you duplicated the entire central government, duplicated all the state governments and the municipalities and the public sector and the private sector, you could not give jobs to all the unemployed. This is the size of the problem. What do you think the budget is doing? Nothing. Not one new job will be created as a result of this budget. Not one new job. How can you make this country progress without growth? As I told you, how did Korea multiply its economy 30 times, 3,000%, by creating new jobs? It's all right, your jobs are protected, because the enterprise is not allowed to close down. Without the government's permission, you can't close down, and the government never gives permission. That's all right for you. What about your children? Where will your children get jobs? Every unproductive job, which is artificially protected by preventing closure of sick units, means the sacrifice of 5 productive jobs in the future. Please remember that. 5 productive jobs are sacrificed in order to preserve 1 unproductive job today. This is our economic thinking. How many sick units are there today? 1,48,000, according to the Government of India statistics given in Parliament. 1,28,000. And the figure is of what date? 31st December 1986. Even the government is too reluctant to release the figures for 87. They would be much worse. But the figures of December 86 are 1,48,000. And if you look at the figures given for 84, 85, and then compare them with 86 figures, you find that on an average, 100 units become sick every working day. Just consider the size of the problem. 100 units becoming sick every working day. What will you do with this country? And what do you think the budget does for this? Zero. There is not one suggestion in the budget to deal with it. I repeat it, I emphasize it, because to my mind, the future of these human beings here and their children and grandchildren is inextricably linked up with the growth, development, enlargement of the national economy. Take the homeless. 25 million were houseless in 1985. The 7th five-year plan which is going on now says that we will need 16 million more houses. You see the 3 million houseless in Bombay city alone. As I pass by the streets, I tell myself, by God's grace, I am what I am and that man is what he is. But who knows what will be my life another time. And it makes you really distressed that your own fellow men are treated like this. But this is what happens in a country where a sensible government will not make sensible decisions. But they talk of alleviating the housing shortage by this, as I told you, 25 paisa relief on one bag of cement. Consider, I repeat, this magnitude of the problem. The stock exchange, so far as that is concerned, I won't say anything because again, I may be misunderstood, but I may tell you that but for the institutional support, the stock exchange would be far, far more depressed than it is today. And is it in the public interest that the institutions must artificially keep on supporting the stock exchange? How long will they support the stock exchange like this? And one day they will become practically the controlling owners of big public sector enterprises. You read in the papers, institutional support for Tata Steel. But do you realize that Tata Steel is already 46% owned by the government? And if the institutional support continues, one day it will be 51%. That means they are in, even today, for all practical purposes, the government has a controlling interest. But you can have a situation where misguided people who don't know economics might tell the government, now that you have 51%, why don't you take over this company? These are the dangers of institutional buying. The real remedy lies in having such a budget that the market will revive of its own volition without the artificial support of the financial institutions. Let me come quickly to two, three other points, which are again of vital importance. Take exports. The budget says we will introduce Section 10B in the Income Tax Act. We will amend Section 8I, HHC, and everything will be all right. We can look forward to a bright future. I have heard this language for the last 30 years. The same words. And I've read every time the budget speech, and every time I've told myself, whom are we fooling? Self-delusion must have some limits. What is the position about the exports of this country and the foreign exchange earnings? We started in 1950 as a republic. We were the 16th, according to the World Bank reports, among the exporting countries of the world. You get your rank depending on the size of your exports. We were the 16th. In 1960, we slipped to the 21st position. In 1970, we slipped to the 31st position. And today, our position is 43rd. From 16th to 43rd, down the line, and we talk of our laws being such as to promote exports. That means how many other countries have overtaken us? Do you think they are more enterprising than India? Do you think they are more intelligent than India?